Today's question is about the Holy Family. How long did Joseph, Mary, and baby Jesus stay in Egypt? And in order to do that, we have to try to discern dates, which is not an easy thing to do in the Bible. And so to kind of get into why that is, I'm going to share with you two dates that are probably the best two that we have from all of Scripture, meaning running from Genesis all the way to Revelation. The two best dates to pin down are these: 586 BC and 70 AD. And what are those dates? 586 BC is when Babylon came and destroyed the first temple. That's the one that Solomon built. 70 AD is when the Romans come and destroy the second temple, the one that is rebuilt after the Babylonian exile. The reason that we have these dates is not because the people of Israel or their descendants, the Jews, the people to whom Jesus is preaching and teaching, not because they are great with dates, but because those dates are recorded by nations outside of our biblical people. So Babylon recorded when they destroyed the first temple, and Rome recorded when they destroyed the second temple. And these dates are not given in the scriptures. So you don't usually have dates in scriptures, and the idea of BC or AD, or if you were studying in a more general sense, CE Common Era and BCE before the Common Era, all of those are later additions to our understanding of time. So therefore, you're not going to find dates in the Bible. So I had to do a little work to figure this out. So Jesus is actually considered to have been born not at 0 AD. I know. It was a guesstimate when they assigned that date. It is more likely that he was born before that, so between 6 and 4 BC. So 6 to 4 years before we thought he was born. And then his death is estimated to have occurred either between 30 and 36 AD. So again, about 6 years of divergence from when we actually think he died. So we know that he went into ministry about the age of 30. He was in ministry for 3 years, and then he died. So you can see where there could be some flux here with these dates. But this is important because we have to figure out the time frame. And so this is the path that is charted in the gospel account of Matthew. Matthew is the one that has the Holy Family fleeing to Egypt. And so what we find is, here is our starting point. Jesus is born. At the moment that he is born, a strange star appears in the sky. This is that nativity star that we see that has the longer one that seems to like point down and show the wise men where to find Jesus. So when that star appears, the wise men, or the magi, who are astronomers, they pay attention to the sky and the stars and the celestial lights, and they notice that there is a strange star that has appeared and is not moving with the rest of the sky. So it takes them some time to figure out that they have to watch it for more than a night to figure out that this star is strange. And then these are literate people, and so they start to do their reading, and they recognize that this is a prophecy that was said about the Messiah. So then they must travel, and they live in the east, farther away than Israel. They travel to Jerusalem, so it's going to take time between the star appearing, them recognizing, and packing up and heading to Jerusalem. The estimate is that they arrived in Jerusalem at 4 BC. And then they are instructed, once they get there and talk to Herod, the king, that the child was to be born in Bethlehem. So Herod sends them on to Bethlehem. So then they have to travel here. Once they get into Bethlehem, that's where they see Jesus. And then they will travel back to their home. And at that point, Joseph is going to be warned in a dream to leave and take the family to Egypt. So those 3 incredible gifts that the wise men bring are going to fund this fleeing, this trip to Egypt. And then they're going to stay in Egypt, and then they're going to find out that it's safe to come back, and Joseph is going to choose not to go back to Bethlehem, but to go to Nazareth and live there and not be under the auspices of Herod's son, who is now ruling in his place. So what we're asking is, how long were we here? And as I said before, the wise men are thought to have entered into Jerusalem at 4 BC. It's also the date that Herod the First, the Great, the one that we talk about in the scriptures, he will die in 4 BC. So there's not a lot of time lapse there. So what's really important is 4 BC makes it completely possible that Jesus was born. The question is, how old was Jesus too? How old was he? So generally, in a nativity, you have a baby Jesus. This is the one out of our alternativity. And then before our magi show up, we will swap him out for toddler Jesus, because the scriptures will tell us that Jesus was somewhere between birth and 2 years old, because that's the age group that King Herod is going to target to kill, hoping to kill baby Jesus in the process. So when we look at the dates together, depending on when Jesus was born, and the death of Herod, it's possible that they stayed as little as a month in Egypt. That's some of the conjecture. Most to say about a month, 6 months, or even up to a year. So depending. Now, the hard thing is if they stayed up to a year is how were they living? They're refugees in a strange land. They don't have any connections. Sure, we could say, that God was probably watching over them, but we have records of how God helped Abraham and Sarai when they went into Egypt. We have records of these kinds of things. We don't have any records here, so this is kind of all conjecture at this point. And the idea is that they went there. They could use the very wealthy gifts, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. They could sell those. You can use gold, obviously, to help keep them safe here, and then to get them back to Nazareth. And so any longer than about a month to 6 months, and you're probably talking about a difficult way to survive. So why Egypt? That's the other question. Why are they going to Egypt? Well, first, because that's where the angel told them to go. But secondly, because there is an understanding that some people have that there's a prophecy to be filled by Jesus going to Egypt at all. So even for a month, even if he was there for a month, it would fulfill the prophecy from Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. It says, "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I have called my son." So the idea is that it is once more chasing Jesus with God's people, so that they went to Egypt fleeing a famine, and there under Joseph's care they were able to grow and flourish, and then they had the Exodus. Same thing here. Jesus and his family came because they were fleeing for their lives, not from a famine, but from infanticide. And then here they stayed just long enough for Herod to die, which didn't take very long, and then they could continue on with their lives in Nazareth. So the best guesstimate we have is somewhere between 1 month, maybe up to 6 months, maybe up to a year. But certainly Jesus didn't get raised there and learn to speak Egyptian and all of that. Instead, they stayed just long enough for Herod to die so that they could come back. But it does mean that the Holy Family have had an experience as being immigrants, and that they know what it is like to go to a place that is not yours and to a people that are not your own and seek refuge there. And so that's hopefully the answer to the question tonight. Thank you so much for asking.